We continue now at the top of Daf Gimel Amid Beis Meseches Avodah Zara. This is Avodah Zarah Daf 3b. On the previous summit, the Gemara said that Liyasid Lavo HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to test the nations of the world in the future. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will test the nations of the world with the mitzvah of sukkah, and he's going to make it very hot, and each person is going to kick their sukkah. And the Gemara says, how could HaKadosh Baruch Hu do this? And the Gemara now continues and says, because sometimes that happens to Klal Yisrael as well, because sometimes the Moshchol Hu Tkufas Tammuz Ad Chaga, sometimes the season of Tammuz does in fact extend until the holiday of Sukkot, and therefore it happens to the Jewish people as well. So this is part of the test of the nations of the world. And Rashi explains the Moshchot Tkufas Tammuz vein Tkufas Tishrei Nofeles Adi Achar Chag. Sometimes the Tkufas Tishrei, it doesn't start until after Sukkot, and so therefore again that is why this is appropriate. And the Gemara continues V'havel Tzara, and then it's painful to be in the Sukkah, and so that's the test to the nations of the world. But the Gemara asks V'amar Rava, but didn't Rava say Mitzdayer Potter Min HaSukkah, that somebody who's in pain is actually exempt from the Sukkah? So what's the issue with the non-Jews leaving the Sukkah? And the Gemara says to that Nehi de Potter. So granted that the person is exempt, but biyute mimavati, but do they kick the sukkah? Do you have to kick the sukkah? And so therefore, that's essentially why they do not pass that test. And the Gemara continues, Miyad HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Mesachik Alei, and immediately HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and laughs over them after this happens. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, this is the Pasuk in Tehillim, Yoshev Bashamayim Yitzchak, he sits in the heavens and he laughs. And the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Ein Sechok Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ela Oso Hayom Bilvad. There's no laughter before HaKadosh Baruch Hu except for that day. And the Gemara continues, Ika Demasni Lahad Rabbi Yitzchak Aha. There are those who learn this statement of Rabbi Yitzchak, that Ein Sechok Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ela Oso Hayom Bilvad. They learn it on the following. The Tanya, because we learned in a Brayser, Rabbi Yossi says, La'asid Lavo in the future, Boyin Ovdei Kochavim U'Misgairin. The non-Jews are going to come and they're going to convert. And the Gemara continues, Umi mekablinon minayu, but would we really accept converts at that time? V'atanya, but we learned in a braysa, ein mekablin gerim limos haMashiach. We don't accept converts in the days of Mashiach. And kayotze bo, similarly, lo kiblu gerim, they did not accept converts, lo bimei David, not during the times of David, v'lo bimei Shlomo, and not during the times of Shlomo. Ela shanasu gerim gerurim, but rather they became gerim gerurim, which Rashi will explain in a moment. Umanichin tefillin barashayin, and they placed tefillin on their heads, tefillin bizroseim, they put tefillin on their arms, tzitzis bibigdeihim, they put tzitzis on their garments, and mezuzah bipischeihim, and they put the mezuzah on their doors, on their entrances. Rashi explains, Elishanasu Gerim Gerurim means as follows, Me'elei and Misgayer, and it means that they did convert on their own, V'anon lo mekablinon, but we did not accept them as converts, they just did it on their own, Demishum Gedulasan the Yisrael Kavli, they were just doing it because of the greatness of Klal Yisrael, the power of Klal Yisrael at that time, meaning during the times of David, during the times of Shlomo, that was the real reason why they were converting, and that's why we did not accept them at that time. And the Gemara continues, Kevan Sharoin Milchemes Gog Magog, now when they would see the wars of Gog and Magog in the future, Omer Lohen, so they would say to them, they would say to Gog and Magog, Al Ma Bossam, what are you coming for? Omrim Lo, they said back to each individual, Al Hashem v'al Mashiach, we're coming against Hashem and His anointed one. Shenemar, as it says in the Pasuk, Lamarog Shugoyim Ul'umim Yagurik. Why are the nations in an uproar and why are they muttering in vain? And the Gemara continues, and at this point in time, everybody's going to get rid of his mitzvahs and go. Shenemar, as it says, the same pasuk we quoted earlier, they're undoing the cords of their yoke. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and laughs. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, he sits in the heavens and he laughs. And on this, according to this version, again, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu only laughs on that day. And the Gemara continues and asks on Rabbi Yitzchak, Ini, is that really true? V'yamar Rav Yehuda Marav, didn't Rav Yehuda say that Rav said, Shteim Esrei Shos Hava Hayom, there are 12 hours in the day, Shalosh Harishonos HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev V'osek B'Torah, for the first 3 hours, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and learns Torah. Shenios, in the second set of 3 hours, Yoshev V'donas Kol HaOlam Kulo, he sits and he judges the entire world. And Kevan Sharoash and Eschai V'olam Koloya, when he sees that the world is really guilty and needs to be destroyed, Omed Mikise Hadin, he gets up from his throne of judgment, V'yoshev al kisei rachamim, and he sits on his throne of mercy. And Shlishios, in the third set of 3 hours of the day, Yoshev v'zon es kol ha'olam kulo, he sits and he provides mizono, sustenance for all of the world, mikarne re'emim, from the horns of the re'emim, ad beitzei kinim, until the eggs of the lice. And then finally, Revios, in the fourth set of 3 hours of the day, Yoshev u'mesachik im levyasan, he sits and he laughs with the levyasan. Shenamar, as it says, levyasan ze yatzarta lesachik bo, that he creates created the Levyasan, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Levyasan in order to play with it, so to speak. And so in any case, you see over here that every single day there's laughter with the Levyasan. And so the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, in briosav mesachik, with his creations, he will laugh, he will play, so to speak, with his creations. However, vi'al briosa, but about his creations, eino mesachik ela oso hayom bilvad, he only laughs on that day. And Rashi explains, Yoshev Vidon, he sits and judges, Rabbi Yossi, like Rabbi Yossi, the Amar b'Meseches Rosh Hashanah, who says in Meseches Rosh Hashanah, Adam nidon b'chol yom, that a person is judged every day. Techsiv, as it's written in the Pasuk, Dvar yom biyomo. And Yoshev Vidon, he sits and he provides sustenance, Kotsev lahem mehechon tizdamin lahem parnasason. He sits and sets up exactly where they're going to get their parnasa, where they're going to get their sustenance. Karne re'emim, the horns of the re'emim, Rashi says, Chai Gedola, that's the horns of a great animal, it's referring to a large animal. And Beit Kinim, literally translated, means the eggs of the lice. Rashi explains minahu, it's actually a species. The miskri Beit Kinim, it's referred to as Beit Kinim. The point is Vidakin Hain, the point is they're very small, so he sustains from the largest animals to the smallest animals. And finally, the Gemara said, Al Briosav, when it comes to laughing about his creations, meaning Al Averos Sha'osin Briosav, when it comes to laughing about the Averos that his creations do, Eino Mesachik Ela Oso Hayom, he only laughs about that on that particular day. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Acha Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Rav Acha says to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Miyom shechara Beis HaMikdash, from the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Ein tzchok la HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is no laughter for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, Umenolan delek tzchok, now how do we know there's no laughter? Ilema midechsiv, if you're going to say it's from what's written in the following pasuk, Vayikra Hashem Elokim tzavakos bayom ahu levichiu lemisbeid lekarcha, it says that that day was a day for crying, and for eulogizing, and for baldness. Dilma hahu yoma v'sulo, maybe it just means that day was for crying and no other days. So there's no proof from that pasuk talking about the time that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And so the Gemara continues, Ela d'chsiv, rather it's because it's written, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yamini tidbak lashoni lechiki im lo ezkarechi, it says if I forget Yerushalayim. But dilma shichachu hu deleka, maybe it just means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will never forget Yerushalayim. Avol sechok mi'o'ika, but maybe there is laughter, and so that pasuk is not a source. And so the Gemara instead continues and says, Ela meha, rather it's from the following pasuk in Yeshayahu, Hecheshesim me'olam achresh asapok, I have held my peace and been still for a long time. And the Gemara continues and asks, according to the understanding that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no schok to HaKadosh Baruch Hu after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, so Baravio, so in that fourth set of 3 hours of the day, we said above that HaKadosh Baruch Hu plays with the Levyasan. Now we have to say that after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, that is not the case. So Ma'yavid, so what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do now in the fourth set of 3 hours of the day? And the Gemara says, Yoshev u'malamed tinoko shel beis rabban Torah. He sits and he teaches the young students Torah. Shenamar, as it says in the pasuk, Es mi yoredeya ves mi yovin shmua gemulei mechola vatike mishadayim. Who is he going to teach the Torah to? It talks about those who are weaned from nursing. And the meaning of the pasuk is as follows: Lemi yoredeya lemi yovin shmua. Who is he going to give this knowledge to? Legemulei mechola v'latike mishadayim. It means again those who are young, those who are just weaned from nursing. And the Gemara continues and asks Umeikara, but according to that, so from before the time that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was playing with the Levyasan, so to speak, during the last part of the day, so then Umeikara man have a migmar lahu. So then at that time, from before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, who was teaching the young children Torah? And the Gemara says, Iboisem, if you want, I could say Metatron, it was the angel Metatron, Viboisem, and if you want, I could say Havahav, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was able to do both at that time. And the Gemara continues and asks, Uvelel Yamayavin, now what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do at night? The Gemara says, if you want, I could say that he does similar to what he does during the day. And if you want, I could say, Rochev al kruv kal shalo, he rides upon the light kruv that he has, Vishat b'shmona asar elef olamos, and he flies through the 18,000 worlds. Shenemar, as it says, Rechev Elokim ribosayim alfei shinon, it says that the Rechev, the chariots of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are 20,000, and then the pasuk uses the phrase alfei shinon, which means even thousands, but the Gemara says, Al tikrei shinon, don't read the word as shinon, elo she'enon, read it as there are not thousands, meaning it's 20,000, minus thousands, meaning minus 2,000, that's a total of 18,000. The Iboisem, and the Gemara says, if you want, we could say Yoshev v'shomei shira mipi chayos, that during the night HaKadosh Baruch Hu sits and he hears the songs from the chayos, which are kinds of angels. Shenemar, as it says, Yomam yitzava Hashem chasto uvelayla, it says that during the night Shiro imi, it says that his song is with me. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Levi says, Kol haposek midivrei Torah v'osek b'divrei sicha, anybody who stops from learning Torah and instead he deals in conversation, ma'achilin lo gachale resamim, we feed him coals. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, this is a pasuk in Eov, hakotfim meluach ale siach v'shoresh resamim lachmam, again it says their bread is the shoresh resamim. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reish Lakish says, Kol haosek b'Torah b'layla, anybody who learns Torah at night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu moshech olav chut shel chesed b'yom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him a string of kindness, so to speak, during the daytime. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk we quoted above, Yomam Yitzava Hashem Chasdo, there's the chesed during the day, Uvelayla Shiro Imi, and it talks about the song at night. And the idea is, Matam Yomam Yitzava Hashem Chasdo, why is there the chesed during the day? Misham Devalayla Shiro Imi, it's because during the night his song is with me, meaning to say there's learning Torah at night. And the Gemara continues, Ika Diamri, there are those that say a slightly different version of the above. Amar Reish Lakish says, Kala Osik b'Torah b'olam hazeh, hadome l'layla, anybody who learns Torah in this world, which is similar to the night, HaKadosh Baruch Hu moshech olav chut shel chesed b'olam haba, hadome l'yom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him this chut shel chesed in olam haba, which is similar to the daytime. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, the same pasuk we quoted above, Yomam Yitzava Hashem chasto v'gomer. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says, Ma'idech siv. What does it mean when it's written in the pasuk in Chabakok, Vatasa Adam Kidgei Hayom Keremes Lo Moshel Bo, Lama Nimshalu B'nei Adam Kidgei Hayom. Why is this pasuk comparing people to the fish in the sea? And the Gemara explains, Lomar Loch, it's to say to you, Ma Dogim Shavayom Kevan Sha'olan Li'abosha Miyad Mesim, just like the fish in the sea, when they come on the dry land, they immediately die. Af B'nei Adam Kevan Shaporshim Midivrei Torah Min HaMitzvah, so too when it comes to people, when they separate from Torah and mitzvahs, Miyad Mesim, immediately they die. Davar Acher, another explanation, Ma Dogim Shavayom, just like fish in the sea, Kevan Shakodra Aleim Chama, when the sun is set upon them, Miyad Mesim, they immediately die. Kach B'nei Adam, so too by people, Kevan Shakodra Aleim Chama, when the sun is set upon them, the heat of the sun, miyad mesim, they immediately die. And the Gemara explains this, Ibo Yisema B'olam Hazev, Ibo Yisema L'olam Haba. This statement, some people say, we could say it means in this world, and we could say it means in the world to come. And the Gemara explains, Ibo Yisema B'olam Hazev, we could say it's talking about in this world, Kid Rabbi Chanina, that's like Rabbi Chanina says. Diyam Rabbi Chanina says, Hakol B'dei Shamayim, everything is in the hands of heaven, Chutz Mitzinim Pachim, except for the cold and obstacles, that is the literal translation. Shenemar, as it says, Tzinim Pachim B'derech Ike Shomer Nafsho Yirchak Mehem. And Rashi explains, what does it mean? Hakol bidei shamayim mechushos umachovos haboim la'adam kulam al yidei gzeira shamayim. All of the different afflictions that a person has, it comes through heaven. Chutz mit tzinim pachim, except for tzinim pachim. And Rashi explains, tzinim tzina. The word tzinim means tzina, cold. Things that happen to a person, he gets ill because he's cold. And pachim choli habal yidei chom. And pachim simply means illnesses that come through the heat. So through the cold and through the heat, that's not bidei shamayim. And the point over here is that when it says in Olam Hazeh, they're going to be affected by the sun, they're going to be affected by the heat. That's what it's referring to. This same idea of Hakol Bidei Shamayim Chutz Mitzinim Pachim. And the Gemara continues, V'iba Yisem Olam Haba, but we can also explain that we're talking in Olam Haba, again, when we're talking about the Kodra Aleim Chama, that he sets the sun upon them, and Miyad Mesim, they immediately die, that's talking in the world to come, Kid Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, and that would follow what Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says. The Yom Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, because Reish Lakish says, Ein Gehenim la'asid lavo, there is no Gehenim in the future, El HaKadosh Baruch Hu motzi chama min artika, rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he takes out the sun, umaktir, and then he sets that against the people, and Rishoim nidonin ba, and those who are wicked, they're going to be judged by the sun, they'll be affected negatively, but tzadikim misrapin ba, but the tzadikim, they're actually going to heal from the sun. Rishoim nidonin, again, the wicked people, they're going to be judged by it, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Dalid Amud Aleph.